everyone. Today we're going to talk about inside one of the successful games that we at CrazyLabs published called Phone Case DIY. For those who don't know me, my name is Shai. I am a publishing manager at CrazyLabs. I work with studios and developers in order to help them publish their hyper-casual games to the top charts. I'm always looking for talented studios and developers all around the globe, either studios that already are creating and prototyping hyper-casual games or studios that are looking to enter the hyper-casual scene and want to learn more about it. So feel free to ping me. So what we'll talk about today, I'll explain a bit about CrazyLabs. We'll go through the pipeline of the processing of prototyping and testing hyper-casual games. We'll see how we can move a hyper-casual game from the testing process until the game is scaled. And of course, we're going to talk about Phone Case DIY Story, one of the latest games that we've released here at CrazyLabs, which is a phenomenal success. So a bit about CrazyLabs. For those who don't know us, we're a top 3 game publisher worldwide. We actually just reached over 4 billion downloads to date. We work with around 300, 400 developers and studios worldwide. Here at CrazyLabs, we're divided into 3 labs. The hyper-casual lab is in charge of developing and publishing hyper-casual games. We have the casual lab, which we're developing and publishing casual games. Some of the games, for example, that we've published in this lab are Jumanji, together with Sony Pictures, Charlie's Angels, Super Stylist is a very, very successful game in its genre. And we have a third secret lab that actually develops secret indie games. So keep in touch there to see if there's anything new coming up very soon. Some of the games that we've developed and released over time, Phone Case DIY, which is the game that we're going to discuss today with over 45 million downloads, Acrylic Nails with almost 60 million downloads, Tie-Dye with over 80 million downloads, and as you can see, the list goes on. Each game successfully was scaled to be in the top charts with millions of downloads. Let's talk about the process and the business model of hyper-casual game development. And I've added this kind of intro here because this really gives an overview of how we want you guys to develop and prototype hyper-casual games and clearly understand what to expect and how to make it more efficient. So there are a few things that we need to remember when discussing hyper-casual games, and we'll talk about them now. The first thing is data, and we'll elaborate it just a bit later. When you fail and how do you fail and how to use this fail as an advantage, ideation and originality, and of course the process of how to prototype in a good pace towards your next hyper-casual hit. So here's a quick process of how we at CrazyLabs work with studios in order to release their games. Obviously, you first start with a pitch, just an idea about what should be the next hyper-casual prototype that you're looking at. The first test that you're actually doing is a simple CTR test. In this case, you don't even have a build in a store. You simply create a gameplay video we will try and understand how the game is appealing to the players and if they'd like to click on this ad and perhaps download it. And after that, we'll do a CPI test where you upload the build to the store to measure the actual CPI, not much content at this point. Next is we understand the game has the potential and people want to play it. Now let's create a game. We'll check the day one retention. We'll add enough content for the day one retention and see how players are reacting to that. And once we have good day one, we'll move to the output test where we'll measure if the game is profitable. Obviously, once we finish that, we'll start scaling the game and release it worldwide. So this is the complete process, and we'll review this detailed a bit now. So here's a great example of a timeline of best case scenario when developing and prototyping a hyper casual game. In the 4 week and up to 4 week time process, you first develop the game for a CTR test. Should be around 1 week or so to complete the video ad for the CTR test. After that, if we pass the CTR test, then we simply go to the CPI test. Should take between 2 to 3 days to create a build and set it up for review. Complete the test just under a week. Once we gather and we understand the CPI is meeting the KPIs, we take another 2 weeks to have up to 2 weeks to have enough content and enough levels and meta for day one retention. At this point, by the way, we're not looking at day 3 or day 7. We're only looking at day one retention. And once we have enough content, we'll set up the day one usage test. And once we have great KPIs for retention and usage, we have another week to measure the ARPU and make sure that the game is profitable and start scaling the game. So in around a 4 week timeline, you already have a full game that passed all the initial tests and you start scaling the game in the top charts. As you can understand, it's a very quick and easy timeline. Comparing this to different models like casual games or even mid-core games where you develop a game in weeks, months, and sometimes even years until you release the game for soft launch to gather the data and understand if the game is profitable. Here, the timeline is very fast. You iterate and you drop the games, and we'll see later another scenario where you didn't meet the KPIs, but imagine that you have a concept and you release it to worldwide in around 4 to 6 weeks max. So it's a very, very fast timeline and can save a lot of time and efforts if you use this timeline to understand the steps in order to release a hyper-casual game. So this is the worst case scenario. So it happens a lot, and we know that not all of the games and not all of the prototypes will be released worldwide. So again, we start with a CTR test, a prototype where you create a gameplay video. If you set up a test and after a week you already have the results of these initial tests, you see that the game failed its first CTR test. It doesn't have the minimum KPIs needed in order to move through the funnel. You simply cut, drop the game, and move to the next prototype. So very, very fast iterations and very fast in order to gather the data and understand if the game has the potential to become a hit. And in 4 weeks, you already started working on the next prototype and not waste your time and develop a game in a very, very long period until you understand if it has the potential and get the minimum KPIs in order to scale the game. So moving forward, discussing hyper-casual games in 2021. Here are some of the things that we're focusing on, and we understand in CrazyLabs that trends and things that are going through the hyper-casual genre in the next year. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of casual and even mid-core studios that are taking dedicated teams and giving them tasks only to work on hyper-casual games. A lot of studios understand that this fast iteration, as we just saw, can be a great additional revenue stream. In some cases, by the way, we have studios that started with casual games, tested a few games with us, released the game worldwide, and they understood the potential and development process and timeline of hyper-casual games, and maybe 80% of their studio is now focused only on hyper-casual games. But again, there are a lot of studios, especially due to the COVID virus, that had projects that had to be cut and put on hold. And it's easy for them with this fast timeline to really prioritize and give dedicated teams the ability to prototype hyper-casual games and work together with us as a publisher to guide them through the process and help them to understand how to publish a hyper-casual game. More official hyper-casual training programs, and we see this in many universities, but not only universities. There are a lot of schools that have dedicated courses for hyper-casual games all around the world. One more thing which is very important is gaming accelerators. Actually, gaming accelerators by companies like CrazyLabs, and we'll show it later in the presentation, that have dedicated accelerators, mentoring and facilities for hyper-casual studios and studios that are looking to enter the hyper-casual scene to help them, mentor them through the process of successfully developing and prototyping hyper-casual games. Another thing is the subgenres, and I think this is a great example because recently we've seen different trends and different subgenres that are evolving through the hyper-casual scene and business model. Over time, we've seen and we know, and everyone knows that there are subgenres like simulation and runners, arcade games, which are kind of subgenre to a hyper-casual game. I think that the latest trend and the latest subgenre that has been very successfully published over the past year or so is the narrative hyper-casual game, which has a story behind the game. Essentially, you can hyper-casual, I would say, any kind of game that you would like, as long as it fits the hyper-casual market. And there are a lot of casual games and endless games that being turned into hyper-casual games. Actually, one of the games that we've released lately is called Shoal of Fish, which started as an endless indie game, and together with the studio and our teams, we made and converted this game to a hyper-casual game that can generate revenues and still keep its original core and look and feel, but it's now a total hyper-casual game that is appealing to a very wide variety of audience, while it started as a very indie game that was less appealing to a big audience. A few more things that we've discussed very extensively over some of the case studies that we've done here at CrazyLabs is social trends, how to gamify social trends. Some of the examples that we can see, for example, tie-dye, which is a great trend, social trend that became a game, and many others, as well as kind of taking retro games and converting them to hyper-casual core gameplays and successfully launching them. A great thing for hyper-casual is how the market is growing and evolving, and you see the subgenres. But I think that one of the best things that kind of evolved through a hyper-casual trend, I would say, is the games that are currently being released and actually being released over the past few years now are not games that skyrocket to the charts and very, very quickly disappear. Today we know that hyper-casual games are games to stay in the charts for a long period of time and generate significant amount of money for a very, very long period of time through growth and live ops dedicated teams. For example, here at CrazyLabs, we do have dedicated growth and live op team that takes a game in its early stages of the launch and continue to work on it for a very long period of time, adding more depth to it, optimizing the game, and giving the developers and the studios an ongoing ability to get a steady revenue stream for years to come even. Great. So I think that it's a great overview, and now it's time to dive into the case study of phone case DIY. So if you had a chance to play it, and if not, I urge you to play the game. It actually started with a social trend. As we've discussed earlier, there are subgenre, and this is an exactly subgenre of social of hyper-casual game, taking a social trend, gamifying it into a hyper-casual game. And if you go into different platforms like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and others, and search for phone case, you would, and I was amazed to look for it, millions of views, tons of videos of people taking phone cases and converting them to their own kind of look and feel how they like to make it. And this is how it actually started. And once you have a game, a concept and a social trend that you want to make it into a hyper-casual game, the thing about it is to try and make it into a game, to gamify it. So how do you gamify it? There are different challenges, and the way that we work is obviously first to keep it as close as possible to the original video. And I've added here the GIF to really show you an example of, a video that I think this is TikTok. They showed how to put the glue, add the glitter, and add all of the accessories and make it into their own phone case designed by them. And this is exactly what we did. We took the trend and we took the steps of most of the successful, very viral videos and pinpoint what can be added to the gameplay, what would be the steps, and explore, what converts viewers into players. And the goal was to create a very fun experience and a great outcome at the end of the level for the players to play it. And obviously, the result, it led to, I would call it a mess-free, making your own phone case DIY, and obviously a #1 game. So the gameplay loop was very simple. You take the trend and you want to decorate the game, the phone case, and then follow the steps of applying the glue, making the colors and the glitters, drying it, putting all of the accessories, the stickers and the props, and then complete the levels and making a very satisfying ending where you see a great result. And this is what kept us, what we tried to keep when we thought about, obviously, with the studio in order to gamify this trend. So we've discussed the first step is a CTR test. And here is exactly what the studio did. Kiki actually took the trend and said, I want to make this into a gameplay and follow the steps to create the first CTR test. On the right here, you can actually see the first CTR test of the game. It had over 3% CTR and a very, very low CPC of 13 cents. And as you can see, it actually mimics the whole complete process of how to gamify the trend. What are the steps and how the outcome will look like. Next step, after the CTR test, CPR test. Now you create the build, you upload it to the store, very little content. Takes about 2 to 3 days to get the full results and understand what would be the CPI. And then in this case, you would try and also create more varieties of videos to make sure that you're nailing the CPI and having the KPI needed in order to pass the test. Some of the things that were added and you can see them in the game today, obviously, adding the glue, adding the colors and the accessories, actually drying it. And this is a very satisfying point and it's eye-catching, a good wow moment in the scenes that you want the players to experience and feel. And after the CPI test, we then moved to the day one usage test. And here there were a few iterations, and you can see the results in the left compared to the right. The first day one retention test, it had 28%, and then the team came in and worked together in order to make sure that the game has the appeal that's needed in order to increase the usage and get the players retained. Some of the things that were improved, obviously, the UI and user experience, color contrast, rich textures, different camera angles. Moreover, they added the meta to further customize the phone case during the level itself. Interesting core gameplay was the first thing that obviously the team did, added the tutorial and have clear view of the first few levels to have a very easy addictive onboarding. And the result was a significant increase in the usage and the retention. So taking one of the first slides that I've showed you before and actually showing you how it went through using the phone case study, and we got the pitch from the studio. The pitch was approved. Just a few days later, they started the first CTR test with over 3% CTR. Just a week later or less, first CPI test, and then launching the game for retention, improving the retention, and launching the game worldwide. Around 6 weeks process, which is a very good timeline for this game. So here's some examples of the process from the first concept, day one retention, CPI test to the full outcome, and you clearly understand that what you need to invest in the first build CPI test can be different from what the game will be launched. As long as you have a very clear gameplay video and it's appealing to the players. The polish and the art and style and meta and accessories and different things that you need to add to the game will be added later in stages, as you can see here, until the game is fully released. This can save you tremendous amount of time and money. Just follow the steps, discuss this with the publishing manager to understand what's needed for you as a studio to save time and money, but still have the KPIs needed and the appeal for the players in order to release the game, release it to be a successful game. Great, so things that we've discussed so far are the business model of a hyper-casual game, a timeline for prototyping, the steps needed in order to test and prototype until the game is released. We saw a great case study about this process with the phone case. We've discussed earlier what we see trends towards 2021, and I've mentioned that universities and companies like CrazyLabs create accelerators and hubs for studios, and we at CrazyLabs already launched a few hubs worldwide. The first one was actually where I am in Israel, Tel Aviv. The second one was in Mumbai, India. We currently are releasing our third and fourth hubs for studios that are looking to enter the hyper-casual scene in Turkey and in Serbia. A few more to come, by the way, so keep an eye and follow us on social media to understand and see if the next hub is coming next to your house, and perhaps you can join. Things that we are working with the studios in the hyper-casual hub, the Crazy Hubs, is why go hyper, and why you as a studio need to enter the hyper-casual scene, onboarding to hyper-casual games, how to gamify trends, user experience, creatives, level funnel design, and so much more, using our facilities and in-house resources, mentoring in order to work together with the studio and successfully finish the hub and hopefully launch hyper-casual games successfully. So that's it. I'm available for any questions. You have here the email, and you can actually ping me directly if you have any questions, either on how to prototype hyper-casual games, or if you have any questions on this presentation. And I thank you for joining this talk, and thank you very much.